Hey everyone, welcome back to the Biblical Storyteller channel. Today we're diving deep into the story of Moses. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe for more contents. Moses' story is full of twists and turns, starting with his family history, according to Israel's culture. In the past, particularly in smaller, isolated communities, marriage within the family, including cousin marriages, was not uncommon, and was even sometimes encouraged. In this case, Amram married his own aunt, Jochebed. Their marriage resulted in the birth of three very special children, Miriam, Aaron, and of course Moses. Little did they know that their youngest son would go on to lead their people to freedom. In ancient Egypt, the Israelites were living in slavery under Pharaoh's cruel rule. Pharaoh ordered that all newborn Hebrew boys be thrown into the Nile River. When she saw that her baby was a special child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. She set the basket adrift among the reeds along the banks of the Nile, trusting that God would watch over her child. Pharaoh's daughter came down to the Nile River to bathe and noticed a woven basket among the reeds. Curiosity got the better of her, and she motioned for one of her servants to retrieve it. They opened the basket and found a tiny baby boy inside, whose cries melted the princess's heart. She knew she couldn't abandon him to his fate. This was a child touched by destiny. Moses' sister Miriam had been watching from a distance. She approached the princess and said, "Your Highness, shall I find you a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" The princess agreed. Miriam raced back to her mother, Jochebed, who was hired by Pharaoh's daughter to nurse and care for her own child. It was a testament to the power of faith, courage, and a mother's love. Moses, the child meant to be cast into the Nile, found himself living in Pharaoh's palace, raised as the adopted grandson of the Pharaoh. He was surrounded by opulence and privilege but never forgot his true heritage. Jochebed instilled in him the stories of his people, their God, and their yearning for freedom. The seeds of identity, sown by his mother, took root in Moses' heart, creating a conflict within him. He lived in two worlds, the world of the Egyptians and the world of the Israelites. This internal conflict would lead him down a path fraught with danger, uncertainty, and ultimately, destiny. As Moses matured, the contrast between his life of privilege and the suffering of his fellow Hebrews became difficult to ignore. One day he witnessed an Egyptian overseer beating a Hebrew slave and, driven by anger, struck down the Egyptian, killing him. This act of defiance had dire consequences, making Moses a fugitive. He fled into the wilderness, leaving behind the comforts of the palace. Fear and uncertainty gripped Moses' heart as he fled into the wilderness. Little did he know that this journey would lead him toward his true calling, a calling that would forever etch his name in history. Moses journeyed eastward, seeking refuge in the land of Midian. He donned the rough garb of a shepherd, his days spent tending flocks amidst the rugged terrain. Amidst the solitude and hardship, Moses found a strange sense of peace. He discovered a strength that came from resilience and the ability to endure hardship. The wilderness became a crucible in which Moses' character was forged. Moses adapted to his new life in Midian, becoming a shepherd in spirit. His days were spent tending to the flocks of Jethro, a Midianite priest. One day, while tending to Jethro's flock, Moses encountered Zipporah, one of Jethro's daughters. Their love story unfolded against the backdrop of the vast wilderness. They married and started a family, finding hope and new beginnings even in adversity. One day, as Moses led Jethro's flock to graze on Mount Horeb, he saw a bush engulfed in flames yet miraculously unconsumed. Drawn by curiosity, Moses approached the burning bush. A voice boomed forth from the flames, calling out, "Moses, Moses!" Trembling before the divine presence, Moses responded, "Here I am." The voice from the burning bush continued, "I have seen the affliction of my people in Egypt. I have come down to deliver them." Moses, a humble shepherd, had been chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of bondage. Overwhelmed by the task, Moses hesitated, doubting his ability. "Who am I," he stammered, "that I should go to Pharaoh?" The divine voice reassured him, "I will be with you." The burning bush served as a tangible reminder of the divine promise. Moses' journey was about to begin. Despite the divine reassurance, doubts lingered in Moses' heart. The prospect of confronting Pharaoh filled him with trepidation. "But suppose they will not believe me?" Moses questioned. The divine voice provided Moses with signs to convince the Israelites. "What is that in your hand?" the voice inquired. "A staff," Moses replied. As Moses obeyed, the ordinary shepherd's staff underwent a miraculous transformation, a sign of God's power. Armed with these signs of God's power, Moses set out for Egypt, his heart heavy with a mix of trepidation and resolute faith. He was accompanied by his brother Aaron, who would serve as his spokesperson, conveying God's message to Pharaoh and the Israelites. The journey back to Egypt was fraught with challenges, testing Moses' resolve at every turn. He carried with him the weight of his people's suffering, their cries for deliverance echoing in his ears. The desert winds, once a source of solace and solitude, now seemed to carry whispers of doubt and uncertainty. Upon reaching Egypt, Moses and Aaron gathered the elders of Israel, sharing with them the divine message of hope and liberation. They performed the signs that God had given them, the staff transforming into a serpent, and Moses' hand becoming leprous and then healed, tangible manifestations of God's power that left no room for doubt. The elders witnessing these awe-inspiring signs were convinced. They bowed their heads in reverence, acknowledging the presence of the one true God and placing their faith in Moses' leadership. Word of Moses' arrival and his message of liberation spread like wildfire through the Israelite community, igniting a flicker of hope in hearts long burdened by oppression. They had toiled under the yoke of slavery for generations, their spirits crushed by the relentless brutality of the Egyptians. But now, a glimmer of hope emerged, a promise of deliverance whispered from one slave to another. The Israelites, inspired by Moses' message and emboldened by the signs he performed, found their voices. The murmurings of discontent that had long been suppressed beneath the weight of oppression grew into a chorus of defiance. The time for passive endurance was over. The God of their ancestors had heard their cries and had sent Moses to deliver them. With the backing of his people, Moses stood before Pharaoh, the embodiment of divine authority confronting worldly power. The air crackled with tension as Moses, his voice unwavering, delivered God's message. "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." Pharaoh, seated upon his throne, adorned in the regalia of his power, responded with a scornful laugh. "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice and let Israel go?" he scoffed. "I do not know the Lord, and moreover I will not let Israel go." The clash between Moses, the humble shepherd chosen by God, and Pharaoh, the mighty ruler of Egypt, had begun. Pharaoh's defiance of God's command ignited a divine showdown, a battle of wills that would shake the very foundations of Egypt. Moses, armed with the power of God, stood firm against Pharaoh's stubborn refusal. The stakes were high, the fate of a nation hanging in the balance as a war of miracles unfolded. With a heavy heart, Moses warned Pharaoh of the consequences of his disobedience. He spoke of plagues, of divine judgments that would befall Egypt if Pharaoh refused to release the Israelites. But Pharaoh's heart, hardened by pride and blinded by his perception of power, remained unmoved. True to his word, Moses, at God's command, unleashed a series of plagues upon Egypt, each more devastating than the last. The Nile River, the lifeblood of Egypt, turned to blood, its waters teeming with dead fish, the stench of decay filling the air. Frogs, slimy and relentless, swarmed the land, infiltrating homes and palaces, a living testament to God's power. Each plague was a carefully orchestrated demonstration of God's sovereignty over creation, a stark contrast to the impotence of Egypt's gods. Yet Pharaoh, clinging to his pride, refused to yield, his heart hardened with each successive blow. The plagues, while demonstrating God's power, also tested the faith of the Israelites. With each judgment that befell the Egyptians, a glimmer of hope ignited in their hearts. Yet, as Pharaoh's resistance persisted, so too did their doubts and fears. Imagine the Israelites huddled in their homes witnessing the terrifying power of God unleashed upon their oppressors. The ground beneath their feet trembled as hail and fire rained down upon Egypt, destroying crops and livestock, a display of raw power that left them both awestruck and terrified. Amidst the chaos and uncertainty, Moses became their beacon of hope, his unwavering faith in God a source of strength and reassurance. He reminded them that God was fighting for them, that these plagues were not random acts of destruction, but carefully orchestrated judgments designed to break Pharaoh's will and secure their freedom. Yet even as Moses rallied their spirits, the Israelites grappled with their own doubts. Could this God of their ancestors, whom they had never known, truly deliver them from the mighty grip of Pharaoh? Their faith, like the fragile flame of a candle flickering in the wind, threatened to be extinguished by the winds of fear and uncertainty. Finally, after enduring plague after plague, Pharaoh relented, his resolve broken, his spirit crushed by the overwhelming power of God. The 10th and final plague, the death of the firstborn, struck a devastating blow to the heart of Egypt, leaving Pharaoh with no choice but to let the Israelites go. Imagine the scene, the Israelites, laden with their meager possessions, streaming out of Egypt, their faces a mixture of relief, disbelief, and trepidation. Generations had they toiled under the yoke of slavery, and now, miraculously, they were free. The Exodus, a pivotal moment in the history of the Israelites, marked not just their physical liberation from Egypt, but also their spiritual birth as a nation. No longer would they be defined by their status as slaves, but by their identity as God's chosen people, a people freed by His mighty hand and destined for greatness. As they embarked on their journey into the unknown, the vast and unforgiving wilderness stretching before them, they carried with them the memory of their deliverance, a testament to God's power and faithfulness. The Exodus served as a constant reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope could emerge, and freedom, though long awaited, could be theirs. After leading the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses and the people arrived at Mount Sinai in the wilderness. God called Moses to come up the mountain, saying that he would make a covenant with Israel. God instructed Moses to consecrate the people, telling them to wash their clothes and abstain from impurity. The Israelites were warned not to touch the mountain, or they would die. Moses ascended Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments, spending 40 days and nights there. On the third day, thunder, lightning, a thick cloud, and a loud trumpet blast filled the sky. The whole mountain trembled, and fire and smoke covered it as God descended in power. The people were terrified, and only Moses and Aaron were allowed to approach God. God gave Moses 2 stone tablets inscribed with the commandments, written by God's own finger, Exodus 31:18. Meanwhile, the Israelites grew impatient and made a golden calf, worshipping it in sin. When Moses came down and saw the people worshipping the golden calf, he became furious and smashed the stone tablets in anger. God rewrote the 10 Commandments and renewed his covenant with Israel. The Lord said to Moses, "Chisel out 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and I will write on them the words that were on the first tablets which you broke. Be ready in the morning and then come up on Mount Sinai. Present yourself to me there on top of the mountain. No one is to come with you or be seen anywhere on the mountain. Not even the flocks and herds may graze in front of the mountain." Exodus 34:1-3. When the Israelites arrived at Kadesh, they faced another test of faith where there was no water for them to drink. As they had done many times, the people complained and quarreled with Moses and Aaron. According to the book of Numbers 20:7-8, Moses and Aaron went to the tabernacle and fell on their faces before God. The glory of the Lord appeared, and God gave Moses a clear command, saying, "Take the rod and gather the assembly together, you and Aaron your brother. Speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will yield its water." Instead of obeying God's exact instructions, Moses acted out of anger and frustration. He gathered the people and said, "Hear now, you rebels, must we bring water for you out of this rock?" Moses struck the rock twice with his staff instead of speaking to it as God had commanded. Water still flowed out in abundance, and the people drank, but Moses had disobeyed God. A glimpse of the promise. As the Israelites neared the end of their wilderness journey, their destination, the Promised Land, lay tantalizingly close, a testament to God's faithfulness and the fulfillment of His promise. Yet for Moses, the realization that he would only glimpse this land of milk and honey from afar, that he would not be permitted to cross the Jordan River and set foot on its soil, filled him with a profound sense of loss. God, in His infinite mercy, granted Moses one final request. He led Moses to the summit of Mount Nebo, and from that vantage point, spread out before Moses like a tapestry woven with threads of hope and promise, lay the promised land. Moses, his eyes filled with a lifetime of memories, of trials and triumphs, of moments of both faith and frailty, surveyed the land that God had promised to his ancestors, a land flowing with milk and honey, a land where the Israelites would finally find rest from their wanderings. He saw the lush green valleys, the rolling hills dotted with vineyards and olive groves, the silver ribbon of the Jordan River winding its way through the heart of the land. It was a land of breathtaking beauty, a land worthy of the sacrifices and struggles that the Israelites had endured. Yet, amidst the bittersweet realization that he would not be entering this land, Moses found solace in knowing that his life's work, his mission to lead the Israelites out of slavery and to the cusp of their destiny, was complete. Legacy of a leader. And so, on that mountaintop with the promised land spread out before him, Moses, the man who had spoken with God face to face, who had led his people out of slavery and through the wilderness, breathed his last. He died as he had lived, surrounded by the presence of God, his heart filled with faith and gratitude. The Israelites, their hearts heavy with grief, mourned the loss of their leader, their shepherd, the man who had guided them through 40 years of wilderness wanderings. They buried him in the land of Moab, his tomb a testament to his greatness, yet its exact location remains a mystery to this day. Though Moses did not live to see the Israelites fully established in the Promised Land, his legacy lived on, his teachings woven into the fabric of their faith, his laws forming the foundation of their society. He left behind a legacy of faith, of courage, of unwavering devotion to God and to his people. Moses' life, though marked by both triumph and tragedy, serves as a timeless reminder that even in the face of adversity, even when confronted with our own weaknesses, God's grace is sufficient. His story continues to inspire, to challenge, and to remind us that true leadership is born not out of power or position, but out of humility, compassion, and an unwavering faith in a power greater than ourselves. A legacy etched in stone. Moses' story, though set in the distant past, continues to resonate with profound significance, offering timeless lessons in faith, leadership, and the pursuit of justice. He stands as a towering figure in the Abrahamic faiths, revered as a prophet, a lawgiver, and a liberator. Imagine those 10 Commandments etched in stone by the very finger of God, a testament to Moses' role as a mediator between the divine and the human. These commandments, a blueprint for a just and compassionate society, transcend time and culture, serving as a moral compass for billions of people across the globe. Moses' legacy extends far beyond the realm of religion. His story, a timeless narrative of liberation from oppression, has inspired countless movements for social justice throughout history. From the abolition of slavery to the fight for civil rights, Moses' example has emboldened the oppressed, reminding them that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles, freedom is possible. Thank you for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and turn on the notifications button to stay updated with our latest content.